In the last video, I compared smartphones to interchangeable lens cameras to help you decide whether or not you even need a new camera in the first place. I'll spoil that video by claiming most people don't, but if you're still in the market for one, then I'll try to help. But there's a lot to unpack here, which is why I've put this script on the back burner since August, and when I resurrected it, I had to work and rework it to find the most efficient way possible to approach this topic. Putting myself in the mind of someone who's purchasing her or his first real camera, it's likely that the very first thing you're concerned with is price. So let's talk strategy. We will first need to determine our budget and only then find a camera kit that fits within that budget. Obviously. I specifically say camera kit and not just camera because it goes without saying that interchangeable lens cameras require lenses to work. Therefore, the combined price of the camera and lens must fit within your budget. For example, if you have an $1,800 budget, you can afford this part of the Sony a7C, the body, but you won't be able to take pictures with it without the rest of what you see here, the lens. So you would need a $3,000 budget to afford this kit. Once a budget is established, you will then need to choose a camera with the specs that are most compatible with your style of shooting. Generally speaking, there are three types of shooters. There are shooters who focus on photography, there are shooters who focus on videography, and there are hybrid shooters. I'm 60% video and 40% photography if I were to apply arbitrary numbers to those, so I consider myself a hybrid. But just about every interchangeable lens camera released these days does both photography and video very well, so you really can't go wrong with any camera within your budget. Assuming your budget is reasonable. Speaking of which, let's talk about price. Cameras are expensive. Today we're going to learn just how expensive they are by giving ourselves a little reality check. For whatever reason, people considering their first camera purchase always give the same number. Say it with me, $500. Or 100 to 125 Popeye's chicken sandwiches, which I mentioned because I've been craving a decent crispy chicken sandwich for years, and my San Francisco neighborhood is lacking in options. That will be the end of my racially stereotypical rant about fried chicken. Anyway, this $500 number makes sense. $500 is considered a large purchase for most of us. I vaguely recall hearing that something like 75% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds correct. So I can understand why anyone who's considering their first, air quote, real camera purchase would choose $500 as a cutoff. Now it's time for that reality check. In this part of the video, I'm going to show you what you can get on a $500 budget. Based on what I know about cameras now, I would head over to B&H and search for each of the top 5 camera manufacturers. Canon, Sony, Nikon, Fujifilm, and Panasonic. Let's start with Canon. Canon has 3 professional camera sections: EOS DSLR, EOS mirrorless, and EOS M mirrorless. You don't need to know what all of those mean, but we will open all of them in new tabs. And within those tabs, we will of course select the camera option. In the DSLR tab, we're going to sort by price, low to high. See the option that appears at the top? I'm going to take this moment to let you know that I already went ahead and looked at every pro camera system for each of the top 5 camera companies. This Canon Rebel T7 DSLR with an 18 to 55mm kit lens is the only item that came in under $500. In fact, when I first looked at this price point back in August, it was the only item that came in under $550, but thankfully we have 2 additional options at the $550 mark. The Canon Rebel T7 we just looked at, but with 2 lenses instead of 1, and the Canon M200 with a 15 to 45mm kit lens. So if your budget really is strictly $500, you have 1 option and your decision has already been made for you. If your budget is $550, you have 3 options. This isn't just Canon. I'll repeat that I looked at the cameras across all 5 camera manufacturers. The 3 cameras I just showed you are the only 3 interchangeable lens cameras across all systems that are even within the $550 cutoff. I will say that looking at the specs, these are not bad options for the price, so we will dive into that bracket. Let's explore the 3 options if your budget is $550. I will tell you which one I would go with if I were each type of shooter. If I'm looking for a camera that will help me grow as a photographer, I'm taking the Canon Rebel T7 kit with the 2 lenses. The 2 lenses cover most of the zoom range between 18 and 300 millimeters, which will give you a lot of flexibility to learn composition as an amateur photographer until you're able to afford more specialty lenses based on the style of photographer you grow into. I won't get into the nerdiness of lenses because all you need to know as a beginner is that the 2 in the Canon Rebel T7 kit are more than enough. If I'm someone who intends to focus on video, or I intend to be a hybrid shooter, I'm going with the Canon M200. The camera shoots video in 4K at up to 24 frames per second, whereas the Rebel T7 shoots video only up to Full HD at up to 30 frames per second. This means the M200 can shoot video at 4 times the resolution of the Rebel T7. The M200 also has the newer, probably faster processor, which is important for anyone who cares about video. The trade-off here is that the Canon M200 kit comes with just one lens that ranges from 15 to 45 millimeters. While the lens has a somewhat limited focal range, it's ideal for new video shooters because 15 millimeters is considered a somewhat wide angle, meaning it can capture a lot of the scene. This means that you don't have to stand a mile away from what you're shooting to get everything that you want in your video, or photo if you're a hybrid shooter who intends to shoot both video and photography. As your budget moves up to $600 and beyond, obviously your options will grow. Since I don't want to walk you through each and every camera at price points above $550, I'll just tell you how I would choose my first interchangeable lens camera based on what I know now. Just like with the 2 cameras I showed earlier, if I'm an aspiring pure photographer, I would focus on camera systems with many affordable lens options, and if I'm an aspiring videographer or hybrid shooter, I would focus on cameras with high video resolution. If your budget is below $500, there are some used options on Amazon where you could find old models in the $300 to $400 range, but I wouldn't recommend it unless it comes from the camera manufacturer's Amazon store. The Amazon links you see in the description will be the Amazon versions of the B&H listings I showed, because B&H says they're too good for me to accept my request to become one of their affiliates. And they're probably right because I've never been very good at selling things. I'm too brutally honest about products to be a salesperson, so even if this channel had 1 million subs, I doubt any camera manufacturers would ever send me a review model of a new camera. Anyway, if you could choose, would you rather have an entry-level pro camera, or would you rather have a crispy chicken sandwich each and every day for the next 3 months?